In the game of loans, you either win or you learn. Welcome to the game of loans, where fortunes are forged and empires are built. Your hosts, lords of lending and wholesaling, are here to guide you through the realm of real estate and wealth building. Brace yourselves, cash flow is coming. Welcome to episode 6 of the game of loans. In this episode, we're going to do something that's called Zero to Hero. We're going to take a journey, that we would do today to be able to become successful, right? What would I do and what would Ross do today in order to reach the types of success that we would want? So let's get started. Ross, I think, and I've said this over and over again, that if I were to start today, right, I would start on the wholesaling side, right? I think that that's the easiest barrier to entry into real estate. It has the most upside with the least amount of risk, right? Because what is wholesaling? It's basically finding a motivated seller, right? And then finding a motivated buyer and making some sort of delta in between, right? Making some sort of spread in between for connecting those two people. So you're essentially not buying anything, you're not selling anything, you're kind of just trading that fucking contract, right? And I think that's it's great, it's fantastic, right? And a lot of people, they ask me, well, how come I just can't be a fucking realtor? I tell them it's a completely different story. Because as a realtor, your duty to the seller is to make sure that the seller is getting the best deal on the market, right? The highest possible sales price that he could get. You've made that oath as a realtor, and that's what you want to do. That's not the case for the wholesaler. The wholesaler, you're really working for the buyer, right? Because what you want to do is create enough of a spread between the sales price, right, where you could fit yourself in. And where you're fitting yourself in is to your benefit. It's not to the seller's benefit, right? So that's what I would do. I think that you could accumulate a lot of money. You get a lot of experience doing that, and you have relatively low risk.
I think that's a great way to get started. Your capital expenditure, the amount of money you need to invest in a business like that, a lot of it's just sweat equity.
Right.
I mean, there are areas you can spend money, putting bandit signs up, building out some sort of a marketing, system to be able to, solicit some of these potentially motivated sellers. Those costs are minimal at the end of the day.
Right.
And I like to tell people, start off and find a deal, make some money, reinvest a little bit of that to try and scale, your operation to be able to handle more, deals that are coming through and find more wholesale opportunities. If we're to fast forward to year 2, I think the natural, the natural transgression from being a wholesaler is being able to analyze the property that the seller's providing you and decide what is the optimal outcome for that particular property. And,
can you explain that to us? What would be the choices?
Yeah. So the first piece of that is, you're looking at just making a spread, selling it to a buyer. That's what the only thing at that point. What you're going to layer on in year 2 is going to be, what can I do with this property? Do I want to keep it and renovate it and sell it? Keep it, renovate it, and rent it and hold it? Or is it a condition I can just purchase the property from the seller and turn it into a rental property right away? So now you're real estate investing. You're actually putting the money that you made off of the wholesale fees that you earned in year 1 into potentially the equity needed in holding that property long term and benefiting from the cash flow and the appreciation of that. And if you find a really good deal, there's deals where if there's enough margin baked in, you don't even have to put $1 of your own money into it. You can find financing for that property and hold it long term, as long as you can cash flow the property, or you can make up for potentially if it's the payment's a little bit higher than what the rents are, but you want to hold it long term because that market's appreciating, or you plan to renovate it or change the zoning and build something bigger there down the road. You have those opportunities for you. So that's going from fee-based transaction management to becoming a true real estate investor. And in becoming a true real estate investor, in that second year, you're going to learn, what does the financing landscape look like for real estate investors? How to utilize private money from just investors that may not be lenders that are willing to finance you. They're out there. Or looking at private lenders like us, where you can get a loan based off of your equity in the property versus needing the income to support that. And then there's also just conventional financing that if you have a day job and you're making income, there are other financing solutions out there that you could finance these properties through banks and other lenders, that would give you access to a different type of financing for some of those projects. Like, for example, the Freddie Mac program that's out there for like 5% down on a multi-unit property. That's less than a private lender would require, which is typically going to be about 20% down.
But you're going to have to prove your income.
But you're going to have to prove income. So if you already have a job and you're looking to get into real estate, is different than if you're somebody that's coming out of high school or college with zero income that's looking to get started without that additional income. Right.
So I think I agree with you. I think obviously in year 2, they're going to probably still be wholesaling some of the deals, right? And being, keeping some, right? Either whether fixing and flipping themselves or whatever, or fixing and holding.
You might have a project that's too big for you to take on. Like it might be a $300,000 remodel, and you only know how to put lipstick on a pig, or you don't have the resources or the connections.
It's too big. The project is too big.
Or you're looking at the profitability of the project, and it's not worth the time and effort that it's going to take to do that, because your cost to improve that property might be different than one of your wholesale buyers' costs, because they have more resources. Maybe they have in-house labor
and bigger crews
to get it done.
Right.
So you'll bite off the small projects at first. I think where you could go just clean out the property, put a tenant in, or paint carpet. Some basic stuff.
Light rehab stuff.
Start there. Start to build up your network of workers. General contractors. Your trades. To go out and do some of these more complex renovations. But I think that's
that's year 2, right? So year 2, like you said, I think it's more lipstick stuff, still wholesaling to get that cash flow, right? Mm-hmm. I would say year 3, it would be doing more of the heavier rental stuff, right? Where there's more profit in those, right? Maybe wholesaling 50% of your stuff, trying to hold or reno or whatever it is, 50% of the stuff yourself, right? Where you don't have to rely on just that wholesale situation going on. You're just, and you're maybe just wholesaling the shit you just don't want, right? It could be pure land where you just don't have the fucking experience, right? You don't have it. And what are you going to do? You're not going to get into that. You're not going to be able to develop the land, and you're not going to be able to build on the land, right? Or it could be mixed-use properties or commercial fucking properties. Again, real estate, apples and fucking bananas between real commercial and residential, right? So now, that's year 3. Year 4, where are you going? I figure you're going to start building a little bit, no? What are you thinking?
Yeah, I mean, I think heading into year 4, you've got extensive, renovation experience on light rehabs, moderate to heavy rehabs. You can start looking at what is the best possible utilization for this particular project. And when I say that, For example, here in Nashville, there's special zoning laws because there's a housing shortage in the inner city that some of these houses may be sitting on a larger lot that you could get permits to develop multiple properties. And so they call them HPRs here. But for example, you could have like a half an acre lot, and there might be a small bungalow on it that, as it stands is worth $400,000. But if you were to knock down that house and get the permits, you could build 6 to 12 townhomes on that lot and create a considerable amount of value, through the rezoning process and building something different there. So that's one that, I'd start looking at as like, what is the optimal use for this? Checking zoning laws, seeing what, you can get permits to do something different there. That's a little bit more complex, but once you've done it once or twice, and you're familiar with the local area, it's a lot easier to execute on.
And are you going to recommend? Are you recommending that they do that on their own, or if it were you, would you find one of the people that you were doing wholesaling this stuff with to kind of partner with?
Yeah, I think that happens naturally through your wholesale contacts. Is they're going to tell you what to look for, or what type of deal they like. So if you have a builder that's consistently buying properties from you with a certain zoning, you'll catch on what they're doing there. And then what I like to suggest to do is, because on the lending side, they want to see that you have the experience doing a similar project, is if you find a deal, instead of wholesaling it to this builder, is start the conversation of let's joint venture, and partner on this together. I'll cut you in on the profits. I'll put up the money for the project, but you mentor me, show me how it's done. Let me get 1 or 2 of these under my belt, and then look to branch off and do that on your own. And so joint venturing on, heavier rehabs, new construction, redevelopment, I think that's, where you start to move into in year 4. The other thing you can start, participating in is, now that you know the financing landscape, a great way to make additional money without having to put up your own resources, similar to wholesaling, is in the real estate investor world. Most states don't require a license to broker loans. So if you're introducing projects to your buyers and you have investors that finance your deals, you can make those introductions to those lenders like us and earn a fee by bringing a property and potential financing, to your buyer. And then you get a double dip. You can get a wholesale fee and you can earn a broker fee on the loan.
And we have some people that actually do that with us.
And then tied in with that, I like to tell people, work with real estate agents, but at some point get your own license, or find somebody where you can get like a preferred relationship with, where there's discounted fees. Because if you're constantly buying and selling, you shouldn't be paying retail 3% to a realtor.
I agree.
And sorry, realtors out there that think that every deal they should get paid full commission on. That's not the case. But try to find ways where you can save money. Reduce your costs. If you can do it yourself, or if your wife or girlfriend or family member, can get a license, that really helps save costs on both sides. Find ways to, broker loans, find ways to partner on projects. These are all great ways to start to branch out and expand your reach and find other ways to monetize, your real estate experience.
I think what I was going to say in year 5 was exactly that. I think in year 5, then the progression is getting your real estate license, right? But also going out and becoming your own GC, right? I think after you've done a couple of projects, then you can become, get your general contractor's license, right? Where now you don't have to go find a builder and pay that 20%. You can just basically build yourself, right? So now you got another 20%, right, that you picked up, and you saved another 3%. That's 23%. That's pretty fucking significant. On a $500,000 project, right? 20% on that is what is that? That's $100,000, right? And on the other end, if you're putting it up and selling that for $700,000 or $800,000, right? Another 3% on that, that's another $18,000. So that's about $120,000 that you just added to your fucking bottom line in year 5, right? So now if you're doing 5 projects that year, right? 5 projects, that is $600,000, right? That's pretty fucking significant to your bottom line, right?
Yeah, always looking at like where your costs are and, you know, who's making a margin on that. Obviously, you have to be cognizant of your bandwidth. You know, you can't do everything.
Right.
So you got to kind of pick and choose where do I need to put in the least amount of work where I can save money first, then start looking at like, can I bring people onto my team that could do some of these other functions like a superintendent or
Right.
you know, somebody who can do the project management for you to help free you up to go find more deals or to expand the business. Another area from there is, you know, call it year 6. You know, if you have a full-fledged GC, you know, license, you're building for yourself, you can start fee building for other people.
Yep.
And now you have a separate business that's generating revenue that you can leverage, get credit lines, get other resources to help your business
Right.
grow even further,
Right.
And help pay for your personnel and your overhead, you know, for managing your own projects, but also making fees off of other people. Same goes for being a realtor. You know, it doesn't mean you just have to represent yourself.
Yep.
You know, you can make income, you know, off of helping other clients that you're building for,
Yep.
you know, sell their property. There's a lot of different ways to start double dipping and making money, you know, all throughout the real estate cycle. And so I've seen people go from what we just talked about in year 1 to 6 in 12 months. I've seen people take 15 years to get there.
Yeah.
So doesn't necessarily mean that like that's the exact timeline. You know,
Right.
this is just, you know, a reasonable amount of time to evolve as a real estate investor, to have a vertically integrated company that's doing everything and trying to optimize your bottom line.
I think I agree with you. And instead of saying year, we should say stage, right? Right. First stage, second stage, third stage, and you know that's the progression, right? And I agree. You know, to get to stage number 6, it could take someone 24 months. It could take someone fucking 15 years or 20 years, or maybe never fucking get there.
And people who reach stage 6, you know, the successful real estate investors, they're probably doing 50 projects a year.
Yeah.
You know, their margins on those projects
are
generally smaller because they need to buy a lot more property and be a little bit more aggressive to keep feeding the machine.
Right.
But in overall, like the actual money that they're generating is considerably higher than somebody doing 1 or 2 a year. And that's not always the case. Some of my guys that are doing 50, 100 projects, their margins are double what a guy's doing 2 to 3 a year. You know, because they've got their costs dialed in, they've got purchasing power. You know, they have the
financing power.
You know, at some point, you know, you have to hire somebody before you have enough projects for them to manage. And you know, once you achieve scale, that superintendent might be able to manage 10 projects, but at first you're going to need to hire them for 2 or 3.
Right.
So your cost per house is going to be higher. But like once you hit that level where you know all of your resources are fully utilized and you know staffed up, that's when you can really dial in the cost there.
But also, I think you know what you hit it on the head. Also, what I think stage 6 and every stage after that, then it's really risk management also, right?
Yep.
Where you don't want to overextend yourself, and you don't want to be caught with your pants down. Where God forbid, you know, you're going to hit a downtrend market, right? And you just got to be careful of that. And but those are the stages, from 0 to hero. 6 stages, and there you go. You got it from the fucking experts. Go out and do it now.
Something I would like for you guys to add is in stage 1, this is how much you're going to be losing next month.
That's kind of hard.
But just the range, because at the end of the day, people like that teasing.
Yeah.
They like that teasing. Even if you do just one deal, wholesale deal per month, that means what, 10K a month?
Yeah. I mean, if we're going back to the different stages, one thing we didn't cover is like what can somebody reasonably expect to make, you know, in these different stages. You know, wholesaling, I think, you know, at first a reasonable target in your first couple of months is like 1 transaction, 1 to 2, and
So
the
what
average
do you think
wholesale
average?
fee is somewhere between $5,000 to $15,000. You know, I've seen them over 100,000. You know, if you really hit a home run. But
Right.
most of those earlier wholesalers are going to get taken advantage of by
Right.
the buyer. They're not going to know what kind of fee to charge and you know how much margin to make. as you progress, I think by the end of the first year, you should be doing 3 to 5 a month. And so I'd say reasonably you go from making 10 to 20,000 to making anywhere between $50 to $100,000 a month if you can successfully scale the business. And those are low numbers for some of the guys that I work with.
Yeah.
In year 2, when you start looking at holding property while wholesaling or flipping property while wholesaling, let's just say you're averaging 5 transactions a month and you keep one of them, just one. I think there's opportunity to do more, but you're going to have limitations on how much capital you have to hold those properties. Most light renovation, fix and flip properties, you should expect to make somewhere between $50,000 to $100,000 per project, and they should take you 4 to 6 months. So if you're doing one a month, which I think one every other month is probably more reasonable.
Right.
Let's just say you do 5 for the year for simple math. You can make another $250,000 to $500,000 flipping those
on top of
or
whatever you make.
let's just say you hold half of them. You still have that equity in the property, but you also benefit from the long-term appreciation.
Right.
So it's hard to put a number on how much you're going to make in future years. But if you were to hold a property for 10 years, it should reasonably double, in any market
value.
over
Right.
that point in time.
Right.
So you're going from a $250,000 house to $500,000. So you're creating potentially $250,000 of future equity over the course of 10 years. And you have a pipeline of those. You can see how you become wealthy very quickly by
Right.
building a portfolio of real estate you can hold. In year 3, we talked about starting to do more extensive rehabs and maybe getting into construction.
Right.
On a heavier remodel, depending on the market, you should be making anywhere between $100,000 to like $500,000 profit
Right.
on those projects. But they're going to take a year to 18 months, and you're not going to be able to juggle too many at once. I think a reasonable number would be
2 or 3.
4 to 6 lighter rehabs and maybe 1 or 2
Right.
heavier rehabs in year 3. So we're talking over $1 million plus all your wholesale fee income still coming in. You should be past 5 transactions a month and
Right.
starting to scale to 5 to 10 range. So I think it's reasonable in year 3 that somebody can easily clear $1 million in year 3. Year 4, we start getting into scaling your construction business and also starting to become your own builder or GC, getting your real estate license, things like this. And then we can blend this years 4 through 6 because, how quickly someone goes through from stage 4 to 6 depends on, how well they apply themselves, how quickly they can learn things, and how well they can manage their business. But, those guys that can really get to that level, they're clearing anywhere between, I'd say $1 to $10 million.
Right.
And, if you're in, if
Depending
you're
on
really
the
good at
market.
sourcing properties,
Right.
And you know how to find the right deals and you're dealing with higher valued properties, there's guys making $25, $50 million a year,
Right.
in that segment of the market. So, again, these don't have to be years. They can be stages. Somebody might be stuck in stage 1 for 3 years because they just can't figure out how to generate enough wholesale income to start holding properties. But, I think as a wholesaler, an entry-level wholesaler, it's reasonable to, make $100,000 to $300,000 in your first year if you can really go out there and execute. Flippers, $500,000 to $1.5 million. Builders, $1 million to $5 million. And then your top tier guys that have everything, all the support services, all the licensing, everything in-house, vertically integrated, where you're managing all of these functions in-house, yourself. Making $5 to $50 million is not out of the question there.
So bottom line is, you want the fucking money, go out there and fucking work. That's it. So the harder you work, I think one thing that I think, Ross, you will agree with me on is that there's a direct correlation. And I know we're going to get comments that, oh, you have to work smarter and shit like that. That's fucking given. That's given. But that being given, there is a direct correlation between how hard you work, especially on the wholesaling side, and how successful you're going to become. Right? Would you say that that's the case?
Yeah, absolutely.
Right.
It's sweat equity at that
Sweat
point.
equity. And the bottom line is, you want to hit those numbers on the high end side that Ross was talking about. It's going to be not just fucking working smart. That's a fucking given. I'm not telling you to be a dumb mule. I'm telling you, have half a fucking brain, work smart, put the work in, and you're going to hit those $25, $50 million years. I promise you. Go out there and get it. You've been listening to The Game of Loans, where real estate battles are fought and won. Make sure to fortify your defenses by subscribing. Cash flow is coming, and we'll be back next time to help you claim your throne. The war of wealth continues.